Hey everyone, Phil from 3DP UK here, and we're back again for another unboxing and build. This time we have the Creality Ender 5S1. Now Creality have kindly sent this to me to review, but everything that I bring you today will be my thoughts and my thoughts only. This has just simply been sent over for me to review and bring to the community the Ender 5S1. Now, from what I've seen so far from other reviews, there's been a bit of a mixed bag on how this has come through. Now, like I say, the review that I bring you today is completely from what my thoughts are. I haven't been paid for it. Like I say, this has just been sent for me to review, and let's get on and get this unboxed and built. Now, sturdy box, which is always good to see. Let's open this up. Taking great care. Now this comes in 3 layers from what I've seen. So the top layer is as follows. So, foam on top, which is good to see, keeps it protected. Now the first layer. So the first layer is basically some parts that we need. So in here you will find, we'll go through a bit more in detail in a second. So a bag of bolts and cable ties and things like that we need. We also have a pair of snips. I won't take those out, we don't need those right now. You will also receive your power cable, specifically for your country. In my case it's the UK. And you have the spool holder. Comes in 2 parts or 3 parts, so you've got the screw part which connects it, and then the actual frame which connects to the printer itself. A scraper, some more bolts, a PTFE tube, Bowden tube, and quite a cool nozzle cleaner. Now, anyone who's seen nozzle cleaners that come with printers, they're normally about so size and fairly sharp and not really that useful. Now, I really like the idea of this. I guess it's because it's a direct drive extruder, so just clean out any blockages, so I really like that. Say, I will take a picture of the contents. You also have a instructions manual and some stickers. So in here, open this up. Okay, so in here you have a quick start guide in multiple languages. For me, English today. It just goes into details the parts list. Also some very detailed assembly instructions, so color coded. So all of the support beams are color coded, which is really good. Stops any confusion where everything is located. Giving some helpful tips on how to install the Z-axis. So what it suggests is to use the foam inserts that come with the printer, which is, I think, is really good. You know, sometimes adding these type of parts to the printer can be quite cumbersome. So to actually utilize the packaging is a really good idea. So we will go through this as we actually put the printer together, and I will show a image of each section as I show it. And here you go, going all the way through right to the end on how to level, etc. And then into multiple languages. Quite a thick instructions book, but for me, I only need, say, the first 8 to 10 pages for English. In here there's Spanish, some French and Italian and Chinese, etc. So it covers a wide range of languages, which I really like. We'll set that aside. Okay, so we have a materials guide, which I really like, from Creality. So as you can see, the extruder on this is it's basically, so the head on this is a sprite extruder, direct extruder, and it gives you a material guide for different types of materials and what speeds and temperatures that you can run at. So I really like the idea of that. At the moment it's spec'd at 250 millimeters per second high speed, but it also shows that around about 120 is your optimal printing speed. Most printing I do is between 80 and 100, unlike the Bamboo Lab, obviously that runs at far higher speeds. It's got a stable cube frame, and like I said, it's a Sprite direct extruder, and it's capable of going up to 300 degrees printing. Comes with CR Touch auto leveling as well, which is cool. Okay, so we'll set that aside. An after sales service card, pretty standard, and probably the most important part, what most of us would like, is some free stickers. Now I tend not to put these on the actual printers, but you know, if you want to use them for any sort of paperwork or frames that you want to stick it to, then crack on. If that's what you want. Most of mine have just been set aside into a drawer. Okay, so the first layer in the box for the Ender 5S1 comes into 3 parts, like I said. So first part is the frame itself. So this is for the Z-axis. As you can see, it's on a dual rod and single screw, and it also comes with the motor already installed, which is good. So there's no connection or install for that part. We'll set that aside. We don't need that as of yet. Okay, so in here also, as I said earlier, comes with the spool holder. So this is the actual frame for that, and quite simply connects, basically really simple, straight through here, and the lock thread locks it into place like so. I mean, we'll put it together through, actually put it together now, and then just locks like so, a little click, and then you have your spool holder ready to go. That's not needed to be connected till the end, but we can just set that aside. Okay, carrying on. So we've got some support frames. So these are for the bed itself. That all connects up. As we go through, we'll explain there is particular ways to put that, and quite clearly it's been put on here as left and right. So the L and the R stand for the left and right. So that helps anyone that's confused by that. We also have 2 of the connecting frames which actually connect to the other side of this support frame here. They just clamp on around the frame and screw on, and that supports the bed, like I say. There's no particular way for those. Lastly, some more support rods to keep the bed stable, and once again quite clearly recorded as left and right at the top. So Creality have taken a lot of time to make sure that what they're showing is as clear as possible, which I really like that. Simplistic building, that's what we're looking for. So there's still an element of building for this particular machine. There are a lot more bolts than some standard printers that seem to be hitting the market. So still a bit of fun, which is always good. So first layer done, we'll remove that. Like I say, keep the foam inserts, because this forms part of the build as some help. So bear in mind, don't chuck those away, and I'm sure you won't to begin with. Okay, so carrying on. So we're on the second layer still. Free spool holder. Free spool of white filament. Now it's 200 grams. It's vacuum sealed, which I really like, and it's enough to carry out at least 2 or 3 fairly sized prints. Now, for any new starter and you don't have any spools, this is great to have enough to sort of do a regular size print just to see what your printer is capable of, especially if you haven't got round to ordering any filament yourself. So we will put that aside. Okay, so the second level features the top of the frame. Now, the top of the frame is your Sprite extruder by Creality. Like I said earlier, it's capable of 300 degrees. It's a direct drive extruder. The filament sensor isn't found on the actual extruder head itself. It's actually offset to the rear of the print head. So just here is your filament sensor. So it's not connected to the head itself, which I actually prefer that, to be fair. The reason for that is if your filament runs out right before the head, there's a little bit of leftovers in there. It's quite nice to have enough to be able to pull out and chuck away the rest, especially if you're changing colours. Like I say, what else have we got here? Okay, so each stepper on the Creality Ender 5S1 is controlled by a high precision stepper. It's capable of 2000 millimeters second acceleration and up to 250 millimeters of printing speed, like I said earlier. Now the high torque on this, on the y-axis, is a 4248 motor for response and accurate motion, and the high efficiency and more eco-friendly style of printing. And like I say, this is a stable cube frame, so in terms of your print quality, that's obviously going to be so much better. So also what I've noticed is it's a 3D printed cooling system, which I guess would suggest it is an open source print, and you could probably change that over if you wanted to. The actual design of the print head, I find really nice. It's clean, it's made of a cast metal, so I really like that. Like the actual clamping tool part for the connections, for the power connections here, has a nice guide as well for the cabling. Now I know that on some printers that doesn't come standard, and it certainly didn't on the Anycubic Cobra Max. And I found there was quite a bit of tension on this cable. Now, to have that guide and you don't have to print it and add it on third party, I think they've taken into consideration some modifications for these printers, and to ensure that the customer gets a decent print and a decent printer, and reduces the risk of fail. Like I say, that's the top of the printer with the Creality logo, so it's branded very nicely. Let's put that to one side. Okay, so we are now on the final layer. Now the final layer is hopefully the heated bed. Now if we pull this out, it comes out like so. Really like the power cable on this. Underneath it's firmly insulated, which I really like. Now this particular printer comes as a combination of auto and manual bed leveling. Now the manual bed leveling really tends to be the first time you set up the printer. In terms of using the manual bed leveling during print on each time, I don't think you'll ever need to do that again. It's just for the initial setup. It comes with a spring steel, only one-sided, but I probably don't see any reason why you couldn't print on the other side. I know people tend to try and do things like that. Like I say, spring steeled, and also some notches on the back of the bed, which makes it easier for leveling up. So you just push it up against the notches and drops into place, and ensures that you put it on right each time. Now, anyone who's used magnetic beds knows that without these notches, sometimes it can be quite cumbersome to get it square. So, and that's obviously very important. Once again, underneath looks very clean and like I say, well insulated. So I like that too. That's really good. Okay, so that's everything removed from the packaging. In terms of the second layer, so if we remove the second layer now, carefully picking that up. Now, like I said, we are going to be using that at some point, so keep it to one side. Now, the final layer is the main electrical panel, so in terms of touchscreen and frame. So in here, let's pull the actual frame supports out, and we have 4 sets of those. So that, like I said earlier, in the instruction manual, they do specify color coordination, which I really like. Made of solid material, which is also great. 2 bolts on each side, top and bottom, creates a really secure cube frame. So we should have 4 of those, and that's going to form our cube. So we'll put that to one side. And once again, the other set, color coded 2 and 3 in actual color and numbers as well, to help with aligning up to your frame, which is also very good. Okay, and that brings us to the final section, hopefully, which is the main electrical board. Now, seeing other reviews, they also have the same issues with trying to remove this from the phone, but we'll give it the best go we can. Now, double checking that everything has been removed from the box, and as you can see, it is. Let's cast that aside. There we go. And what you see here is the actual base of the Ender 5 S1 with a number of cables for various functions. Make sure that you don't pinch those or damage those. There's quite a few there. Just pull them all to the side, make sure that everything is clear, and then we'll put that down here like so. And as you can see, it's a touchscreen, so it's a 4.3 inch touchscreen, and that's colour. Let's pull off some of the packaging. It's got all the Creality logos, and also from the side we have the power on off and the power unit cable. And on the right hand side we have a full size SD card and a USB connection point for printing. Okay, with the printing, you can print in a number of different ways. So you can print from an SD card, like I say, printing on the right hand side. You can also connect it to a PC via a USB-C cable, which is also on the right hand side. But you can also do cloud printing, so connect to the Creality cloud app via a Wi-Fi connection, which is all built inside. You can download the app from the Creality website. There is also an opportunity to connect a Wi-Fi box that can also be bought or purchased separately, which is also a great addition. So it gives a multiple way of printing, which is always great. Okay, so we can continue with the build now. Okay, so on the rear of the printer is the power rating for your country. In my case, it's 230 volt. However, it could be different in other countries. So please, before you start, check your power rating specifically for your country before connecting to power. You could potentially damage the motherboard and cause damage to the printer, which would result in not being able to be used. So make sure that you select the correct rating for your country. Like I say, what we're going to do now is set aside everything and take a quick look over of what has been supplied by Creality. So bear with me while I set this all out. Okay, so having a look at the main body of the Ender 5 S1. This is part of the electrical components, so the 4.3 3-inch colour touchscreen. Houses the power supply and the motherboard, and forms part of the lower part of the cubed frame. So in terms of the frame, it's an all metal cubed frame, goes with a classic Cartesian structure, and the stability enhanced by thicker linear shafts, extra gussets and 2 cantilever and silicone bed mounts. This is most likely going to ensure that 100% success rate when printing at higher speeds. We also have the main frames for the bed itself, and the bed size is 220 by 220 with a 280 on the Z. Okay, and we're over to the main frame. So you have 4 of those, and like I said earlier, each of those are color coded. Dual Z rod. So you have a motor already connected, so there's no installation in terms of that. Very supported for the bed, and like I say, with the frame, that also helps with stability. Over to the top part of the Ender 5 S1, and like I said earlier, houses the sprite extruder and capable of up to 300 degrees. As mentioned earlier also, the actual filament sensor is to the rear on the right hand side. I like the fact that the actual actual part of the frame has handles as well on either side if you need to move those. We also have the spring steel bed, like I said, 220 by 220, which houses the notches for easy removal and easy installation of the bed. You can swap them out, and it is possible to remove those 2 supporting pins, because obviously the design of other spring steel beds or other beds won't have that. And then what we're going to do now is quickly look over all these parts that come with it, the spare parts. Okay, and over to the parts list. So what we have here is a power cable, we have the spool holder, we have the Bowden tube and some cable ties. We have some clips and a spare nozzle. We also have some clippers or snips, and we have a scraper. We have some various tools, a spanner, a screwdriver and some Allen keys. And then we have a varying amount of bolts that are specifically for different parts of the build, and each of these are clearly marked with what size and what brand they are, so that will help with the build itself. We also have some cable tidies. This clips to the frame from what I've seen online. After sales card, some stickers, a helpful guide in terms of temperatures and different types of filaments, which is also very helpful, and a quick setup guide with each language that is suitable for your country. In this case, for me, English. Okay, so that's everything from the unboxing side of it, and now we're going to head into the build itself. Stay with me, 3DP UK, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and over to the build of the Ender 5 S1. Okay, so we're going to get over to the build now, and we're going to refer to the quick start guide. So what we want to do to begin with is to align the profiles. So we install these using the number 25 screws first. So the M5 times 25. So if we go through to so we've got the M5, so like I said earlier in the video, M525 is clearly marked on the actual packaging. So we have one pack of those at the moment, and the first part we need to do is pick up the main part of the frame, and we have that here. Say be careful with the cables, so I always tend to just move these out of the way so they don't get caught. Just leave them down the back. Okay, so we're going to do the main body of the build now. So the actual frame itself, as I said earlier, all of these frames come individually numbered. So the 2 number ones are going to be at the front, and then the yellow number 3 is going to be on the left, and the green number 2 is going to be on the right. I like the fact that they've labelled this, it makes it a lot easier. There are a number of ways that you can put this together. You can either lean it over the side of the desk and 2 bolts on each side, or you can turn it over on its side. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn it on its side and work that way. So we're going to start with number 2, and with the larger pack, each of these packs are clearly labelled, and these are the M5s, I believe. Let's double check. So the M5 25mm, and each of these come with a spring washer. So let's do that now. Just snip the ends off. These snips are really useful for various different reasons. Let's put these down on the desk. Like I say, just move these out of the way so you don't damage anything. And we'll start with the first frame. So what you want to do is have the smoother side on the outside rather than that way. You want it smooth, like so. So the number sits on the edge, but also I've noticed that there's like a covering on the frame itself there, so you need to make sure that that's level and it's not blocking the actual bolts itself. So let's turn this on its side. Would be easier with 2 people, but it's just myself today, so take care. It stands on its own there, but obviously the moment you start wobbling it about, it might have a bit of an effect on it. So let's put the first screw through. So there's 2 on each frame, and we'll get the first one in, get the bolt bite and do the second one. Same again. So it's fairly easy. Okay, and then we're going to grab our Allen key, which is supplied in your kit, and we're going to tighten this up now without dropping the Allen key. A lot of people use their own kits, but I like to show in my videos using the tools supplied, because not everyone has Allen key kits and screwdriver kits and that to hand. So I think it's a good idea to show what you're using, what's supplied in the package that you're delivered. You say is take your time with it. There's no rush. Make sure it's bitten, which it is, and tighten it up as well as possible. And so what you do is 2 bolts in each one, all 4. We'll do the 2 red ones at the front, and I'll come back to you and we'll start the back. Okay, so now we have the 2 front supports in, we're going to work on the back. And like I say, checking this, it's yellow to the left, so always make sure you get it right. So as we turn it round, it's now going to be the opposite way. So remembering that this is the yellow, and with this particular one, it doesn't actually matter. As you can see, it hasn't got a flat edge like it does on the front. The flat edge on the front for the main part, and then it really doesn't matter for this. But we're going to go yellow facing forwards, and we're going to turn it on its side again, like so. Yellow sticker forward, like so. Couple of bolts into the thing, and we'll come back once that's all connected. Okay, so now we've got the yellow support. We're now going to do the green support on the final side. You can't make a mistake with that because all 3 are on now. Turn it over on its side. Once again, green towards the front, and put in your 2 bolts. Okay, so that's all of the support beams in. Now we can turn it over onto its bottom again, and that's how it looks. Now, really simple. Altogether there was 4 4 bolts on the front and 4 bolts on the back, so 2, 2 and 2. Once again, as I said earlier, the red at the front with the number and the flat edge at the front, and then 2 and 3 yellow and green, and these actually, it doesn't really matter which way they go, but I would prefer to have it showing as the stickers on the inside, just as it's described in the picture. So the next step is to put the extruder and the head on. So let's grab that. Okay, once again, this is the front of the machine, Creality, and the filling head is at the front. This slots over nicely over the top. Just take your time with it, mind you don't pinch your fingers, and it sits like so. Once again, we're going to be using the M5 bolts with the spring-loaded washers, and on the top of each profile there is 2 slots for these. If I move this up like so, we're going to go in, and you just got to make sure this is as square as possible. I put the first one in like so. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll tighten them all up universally, so we'll do each corner just to make sure that it's square and true, and when I come back all of those bolts will be on. Okay, so all 8 bolts are in, and as I said, I'm going to tighten them corner to corner. Just helps to make sure that it's square, and like so. Go over to this corner, just give it a little tighten. This just helps to keep it true. And then this corner. I'm say this isn't where it's going to be. This desk is offset, so it's just where I'm doing the actual unboxing and build. Okay, so we put the front end. Now we need to do the bed. And we need to build the frame, the support frames for that. So I'm going to move this to one side now, and this is where we're going to use the supplied foam packaging. Okay, so now we're going to connect up the bed to the Z-rod. So what it's saying to do is, using the supplied packaging, we're going to use that as the support to make it easier to do the build. So using the bed, so the bed will sit upside down on here like so, and let's move this out of the way so you guys can see better. Rest the bed over like so, and with the motor at the bottom, let's just make sure I'm doing this right. Okay, so we need to turn the bed over. Let's do this right. Cable out of the way. Over the edge, you've got 4 holes here, which obviously need to fit onto here. So with the motor at the bottom, like so, as you can see, this is not quite in the right place. So if we just push that down, just push it gently. It's not connected, so it's not got any current. And push it up till you get to the right point, and it just helps rest the bed on there while you're putting the bolts in, which I really like the idea of that. So like I said, 4 bolts in through the top here. It fits nicely. Once you've got one in, you tighten that one up, and that will take a bit of the movement off, like so. That one's going in nicely. And then once you've tightened up all 4, we can go on to the next step. Okay, so I've put in the 4 bolts, so 2 over side, sorry. Just be mindful of the fact that these rods do have some grease on it. So try to limit the amount of times you touch the bed with it. As you can see here, there's a bit of moisture there. So I'm going to give the bed a wipe with alcohol before I use it anyway. So using this foam really does help with the build. What it's telling me to do now is to add the supporting bracket. So what you need to do is turn the bed over. So using the foam again, I'm going to turn it round. This time we're going to move the bed so it's like so, and this just helps with like supporting it. Okay, so using these frames here, so you've got this part, and this basically just clamps around here and creates like a support for the bed, because right now the only support is here. So I do like that idea. Okay, so to put these support frames on, so we're going to put the right one on first, remembering the bed's upside down, so just imagine that it's on the right hand side. We're going to put this on the outer side like so. There's basically this clamps round here and creates that seal, and then there's also a bolt that goes into here. So we're going to be using the M520s for this. So using your Allen key, let's put the bracket on like so. So you hold the bracket on one side, feed the bolt through, and once you've got one on, you can let go of that because it's self-tightening anyway. So like I say, 3 on this side, 3 on the other, and we're going to put the left one on after we've done this side. Make sure it's nice and tight, and this just creates a sturdy platform and make sure that you don't get any wobble on the bed. Obviously it being like that. Let's tighten up this side, and then we'll move this round and do the other side. So nice and tight. Okay, moving this round. Hold the bed at the same time, you don't want that to drop. And then we're going to do the left hand side here. Same situation. Have this on the outer side like so. Fits over nicely. Like that. There's like a guiding pin as well. Using the same screws, put the cap on the other side. The bracket on this side. That's it. Once you've got one on, it's bitten then. There you go. And then once I've tightened up, so like I say, 1, 2, 3 bolts, we'll go on to the next. Okay, now that the bed has its support brackets on the left and right, like I say, keep the foam. This has really helped with that part. We're going to go on to the next part, which is to put on the Z-rods, actually onto the frame itself and the bed. Okay, so we're going to connect up the bed to the frame itself. Now, looking at the instructions, you have to tilt the cube printer forwards just to be able to fit the bed in. It's got a fit in on the inside of the frame and on the inside of the rod, and then connect up 2 bolts at the top, 2 bolts at the bottom. And we're going to be connecting them up with some M530 screw caps. So like I say, very obvious which way it should be. The bed at the top and the motor at the bottom. So we're going to lean this forward like so, just to be able to let the motor go through. Try and work out the best way of doing this without causing too much. Maybe worth actually looking how awkward it is. Move the bed down a bit. That actually helps me fit it underneath. And then like so, fit through here. So it looks like we've done that. And once it's in place, it's not going to go anywhere, so you can let go of it. As you can see, that was quite difficult to do. Best thing to do is to tip it forward and move the bed in. It's fairly obvious in terms of the way it's described in the paperwork. So as I said, M530 screws will connect up the bed to the frame. So it's 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom, and once I've done that, we'll come back to the next part. Okay, so we've connected up those 4 bolts and the bed is now secured to the frame itself. What we now need to do is to add the support brackets, and once again they are clearly labelled, so they are easy to do. Let's turn it to the side. So this being the right hand side, on the actual support brackets, they are actually labelled with L and R. So it probably actually doesn't matter by the looks of it, because they have actually put L and R on both sides, so I guess it's fairly universal. So I wouldn't worry too much about that by the looks of it. It's telling me to use some M520s, so let's find those. Okay. Okay, so if we just, it slots in like so, fairly simple. Connect it up on bottom and the underneath here, so we can do that. We'll probably just have to lean it to one side. So once I've connected up this side, we'll come back and do the other side. Okay, so we put that support frame in. You just put the M520 bolts through each of those sides and then do the other side with the left hand side, and that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so each of the support rods are in, and now we are going to connect the spool holder. So what we need to do for that is spin this round all the way, and on the right hand side of the printer, so the SD card side, your spool holder is just going to sit off the edge here, and using the M514 bolts, so these are the only ones that are silver, so when you see this, when you open up, just know that that's for the spool holder. So earlier I already put the spool holder together, and basically looking at this, it just sits on the side like so. I'm guessing from the inside. Yep. And once I've connected that up, we'll go to the next step. Okay, so we've connected the spool holder, so it was the 2 M14 bolts on the inside, and it looks like this. I would actually say that early on in the video, when I put the spool holder part onto it, it was actually easier to connect up without that off, so I just took that off and put the 2 bolts on and fit securely to the frame. So the next step now is working on cable management, so connecting up all the cables. So what we're going to do is we are going to spin it to the back of the machine, because that's where most of the actual cable connections are. So what we're going to start with, let's connect the lower part. So push fit connection for the heat bed. This goes basically into the bottom at the back of the power unit, and you'll see there's like a little notch there. That notch is where we're going to match up to the bottom. So you might find it easier to push the bed up at this point, and because it's not connected to power, it's not a problem. And then simply find the notch, which it did straight away, push it in, and using the screw thread, tighten up that so that it's connected. Okay, so we know that we have the heat bed connected now, and that's clear. The next step is to add the stepper motor connection. So at the bottom you will see, let's try and get you guys in a bit closer now that we're working here. And so you've got the stepper motor connection, which you'll find at the back of the board. That fits in just at the bottom here. That's the Z. Let's just fit that on. So it's the only wire at this point. that just pushes and clicks in place like so. So far we've got that, the bed connected and the Z motor. So the next step would be to go up to the top part and work on the extruder head and the stepper motor and Z switch. So we're going to do that now. Okay, so now we're going to connect up the cables to the extruder and the motor and the Z switch. So what you have here is you have one or two cables that fit to the extruder itself and a couple of limit switches. So what we're going to do is start with the limit switches first. The first one is for the Y, and that's what we're going to connect. Okay, so what we're going to do is connect up the let's grab this one. So we're going to connect up the Y switch and the Y motor. So we're just going to feed that underneath. Now you can't mix these up because one's smaller and one's larger. So just taking care to push these switches in, not to damage the wires. They just click into place like so. And then once again, let's put the motor in. Let's try it that way. And they just both push in, just make sure that they're fully in. And then what we'll do is we'll do the cable management in a minute. The next step is to connect up the filament detector. So this is labelled as, where are we on the list? This is actually labelled up as D detector, I guess. So that fits in at the side like so. You can actually just tidy it up in a minute, and that just should just push fit in like so, which it does. And the next part in the final ones is the extruder cable and the X motor and X motor limit switch. So let's do the limit switch and motor first. So the switch is the smaller one, so fitting that in like so, just pops in, and then the motor on the side, and that just pops in as well. So all these all these cables will be tidied up in a minute. We've got some cable ties, and making sure that before you connect it up to the extruder head, that you just feed the cable into here. So quite simple really, just is quite flexible. Obviously don't force it, just feed it in like so. Let's put it in that way and then pop it in, and then just pull it back as far as you can get it, and then these open up, and then just push it in like so, and these connectors just push forward. And then once the connectors pushed in, these clips just fit over, and I do like the carrier for the cable. So that's all of the cables connected. So what we want to do is just do a bit of cable management now, and that's what we're going to do from behind. Now that everything's connected, we want to make sure everything looks tidy, and that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so working from behind the machine now, we're going to tidy up these cables a bit. So in your kit you would have received some brackets, which I'm just opening now. And these brackets will help keep everything tidy. So you have 5 of those, and we also have some cable ties which we're going to utilise. So the first thing we want to do is just tidy up these cables, make sure nothing's pinching. These push in nicely into here like so, and then the larger cable can fit on the outside. Let's just tidy that up. So and then you can just feed it really. There's no right way or wrong way to do this. I think it's a good idea that they've got cable tidies, and it just makes it nice, and they're branded as well, so it says Creality on them, so it's a nice touch, as you can see just here. So I do like that. Like I say, don't pinch the wires. You don't want to come this far and then damage the wiring. And these just pop in. They're not too difficult to do. And go all the way out to the top. And once we've got to the top, we'll come back to it. Okay, as you can see, I've put all the cable tidies in now, and that's a really nice feature. It's tidied up that really nice. So now we need to fit the Bowden tube to the filament sensor and just tidy up some of the cables there, and then make sure the next steps are to power on the machine and see where we are. Okay, let's go to the next step. Okay, so everything's connected now. We can tidy up the rest of the cables once we've done the next step. So the next step is to connect up the Bowden tube. And basically it just fits in at the top of the filament sensor here, so it just push fits, locks into place, and then once again at the top just pushes in. This isn't push fit, that just pops in and out, and like so. And then what we want to do is tidy up the cable for that. We've got a bending harness for that. You can use cable ties if you choose, so it's not compulsory to use these. We're just going to do it for the case of this. And it just simply locks around, twist the cable like so, and it locks itself fairly simply, like so. So that's now locked into place. I'll probably add cable ties to that. I don't really like the design of that. I just find it sometimes pings off when you don't want it to. Now in here you receive a spare nozzle and also a clip. Now the clip is actually for this part here. You just want to push that through and make sure that that's locked into place and the Bowden tube doesn't pop off. So make sure not to lose that, and that just clips in and holds it in place. Okay, so now that we've got everything set, we're going to go on to the next step, which is to connect up power and start leveling. So that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so the cable fits in on the left hand side, and then just flick the switch and we should get some power to the unit. As we can see, it's now kicking in, and we'll see the Creality logo pop up on the 4.3 colour inch TV touchscreen. And what we're wanting to do now is to please follow the steps of auxiliary leveling. So let's go to the settings. So we've got home, so it gives you the temperature of the nozzle, the bed, the speed, and the Z height offset, and then play and stop if you wanted to start a print. Just some items on the SD card. I don't believe I received an SD card with this, so I'm probably going to have to download the information to that, which is a bit unfortunate. So prepare temperature settings, and then settings page. So this is where we're going to do the leveling. So it says to click on that. Let's click leveling. Let's do auxiliary first. So with a piece of paper. So what it's going to do is just level up everything first. And it's raising the bed up. As you can see. And using the CR Touch, it's now auto leveled and moving into place. So what we want to do, we're just going to use this leveling sheet that comes with it. We're just going to put it onto each corner. So let's start with the first part. Let's do number 1. And then let's go over to number 5. And this is where we're going to use the larger manual knobs at the bottom. So you just want it to touch the bottom. And once you're happy with that, we can do that. And it's a bit like the manual side of it that we used to do. You just do this once, move the paper back and forward, and then go over to number 2. Same again. Until it bites, and you can feel it there. Number 3. Once again, loosen off the manual knob until we feel it bite. I would suggest doing this 1 or 2 times just to make sure. There we go. Number 4. Go. Let's go back over to number 5. Just, it's worth doing it. You only have to do it once. Because when you adjust the others, they do tend to knock the other out. Number 2. Go back over here. Number 4. Okay, so that's fine. Number 2. It's a bit tight now, loosen it off. Number 3. That's fine. Number 4. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And then lastly, number 5, just to be sure. Yeah, and I'm happy with that. Okay, so we've done the manual leveling using the manual knobs at the bottom. That's just the initial. Then on the screen here, choose auto level, click start, and this will do the auto leveling sequence using the actual touch sensor in there. So it's got ACR touch auto level. So it's going to carry out a bed level mesh now, and that should give us a good mesh level, and then we'll come back once it's completed. Okay, so it's carried out its mesh level now. So we've done a manual and auto bed leveling. So that was the build. It wasn't too difficult, to be fair. Some fiddly bits, but nothing out of the ordinary. So most printers now come with just having to bolt up 4 times and then you're away printing. But I do like the fact that there is a little bit of actual involvement in this. Like I say, there was a little bit of grease on the bed just where I was touching that, so just be aware. So just looking at the screen, very responsive. So the home, and then you've got the Creality logo. You've got the bed temperature, you've got the nozzle temperature, speed and Z height. Print, once again, I didn't have an SD card supplied with this, so I've got the information and files I can just load up. There's no big deal with that. In terms of where that goes, it's to the right hand side, an full SD card slot with a USB connection. Over the left hand side is your power cable and on-off switch. Back to the screen, so this is where your files would be if you were printing. Prepare, you've got basically you can adjust your Z just by pressing the button like so. Auto home and where it is currently, and you can adjust it in 10mm, 1mm or 0.1mm. You've also got an in-out, so that's for removing filament. So if you was to do that, it would be easier, but I tend to do mine manually. Temperature setting, current temperatures, so you can preheat PLA, preheat ABS, cooling on and off. Like I said, with the cooling, it does have the dual duct, and this seems to be 3D printed, so it's something that you could probably modify if you wanted. It's direct drive in a Sprite extruder. I really like the fact that the head looks really stylish. It's sturdy as well. The cable management and support, I really like that. These are all features that people tend to add on. It looks like it's on a stable surface, and the frame. So the specs of this, basically we're looking at 250mm high speed. It's in a stable cube structure, as you can see. Sprite direct extruder, which is capable of up to 300 degrees, which is brilliant for all different types of printing. You also have the CR Touch, as I said and showed you earlier, with the manual to begin with when you first start printing, and then it does the auto bed leveling. The touchscreen is very straightforward. The UI is so easy to use. There's obviously multiple ways of printing, which I said earlier on in the video. So you can print via the SD card on the side, or the USB connection direct to print to your computer. You can also use the Creality Cloud PC spring bed, which, as I said, has the little notches at the back, which helps for putting the build plate back into the right location, as anyone will know that sometimes can be quite difficult. It's a very reliable printer from what I've seen. I'm going to be carrying out some functional tests on it, some prints. As I said, I can't do that right now, but we'll do that towards the end of this video. I'm going to load up some files from the Creality website and whack it onto an SD card and get printing. But like I say, the stable cube frame really is a selling point. It's an all metal frame, which is obviously in the classic Cartesian structure. You've got the thick linear shafts and the extra gussets and the two cantilever on the sides. And the silicone bed mounts, which are just underneath, you should be able to make out there. I also like that the bed underneath has been thermal insulated. So in terms of like the X, Y and Z stepper motors, these are obviously high precision motors, which is ideal for high speeds and stop it from overheating. What else have we got? So as I said, it has the Creality Sprite extruder, which is it's a stunning looking printing head, I must admit, and I don't think it's going to need any modifications to make it look any better. The airflow in the grills at the front will obviously help with the printing and cooling. As I said, it's 300 degree hot end, so you can do a lot more with that. It's got a corrugated heatsink, so it's 2.5 times the surface area that is rapidly cooled by a silent axial flow fan, which you can just see at the back of the filling head there. And once again, I said it's been 3D printed, the fan, so you could probably change that if needed. So what I'm going to do now is load up some files into the SD card, and we'll print some test prints and see how this functions. But so far that's the unboxing and build, and we'll go on to some functional prints and see what happens. But I really do like it. I think the build quality is absolutely stunning, as you can see. The carry handles, the filament sensor, the CR Touch as well. But overall the build quality is absolutely stunning, and the instruction manual was spot on. There was no issues in terms of that. The easy to use labels, which you can obviously peel off, will help, but overall easy to build, and anyone purchasing this, I think you wouldn't have any issues with the setup. So let's go on to the functional prints and see what this printer can deliver. Okay, so I've managed to get some files onto the SD card, which is just here, and like I said, goes in the right hand side. Listen for the click and press print. You see that these were pre-loaded, so unfortunately I didn't get an SD card with my printer. It's not too much of a problem because I was actually sent those files. Just grabbed an old SD card from the cupboard, wiped everything off it, and preloaded their pre-sliced models. So the boat, which is actually the benchy, so I'm not quite sure why they called it the boat, a rabbit and a cat. So we're going to go for the boat, but before we do that we need to preheat. So we're going to go to prepare, temperature settings, and we're going to preheat for PLA. So what you'll do is you'll notice now on the screen it says 205 for the nozzle and 60 for the bed. We're going to wait for that to heat up, and then we'll load up some filament into it. So we're going to use the filament that was supplied. It just makes sense to go with that, and let's get to that bit now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to snip the filament that was sent over. They gave us a generous amount of 200 grams, which is good. It's about the same amount that I received with my bamboos. Obviously that didn't take long to eat through that, to be fair, at the speeds that these printers now go. So it's just a normal basic PLA white, and what we want to do is start from the bottom, snip at an angle. So we're going to go for a 45-degree angle using these. Just move that so. And as you can see here, the filament sensor's here, so we want it to go through the filament sensor, through the Bowden tube. But what we're going to do is pop off the Bowden tube for the time being, let the filament come through so that we can feed it. You've got like a release knob here. This allows me to push the filament through the extruder and in through the nozzle. What we're going to do just quickly though is just lower the bed. Let's just move that slightly out of the way so we can see any filament that's coming. And that will help us when we're loading up the filament into the extruder head, as you can see. I think I might have accidentally pressed home. They're quite close together. We'll just let it do that. It won't take 2 seconds, and then we're going to just lower it down. Let's change it to 10 mil. Not too bad in terms of speed, doesn't need to go all the way down. Okay, so as the filament sensor is at the back of the printer, you want your spool to be in this sort of angle, and just fits over nicely. Fit it through the sensor, which is just here, and you'll see a blue light come up on the sensor, and once it's pushed through, it's not too much of a bother to get all the... Okay, so we're pushing the filament through now, and once we see it come out the other end of the Bowden tube, then we know we're good. Just take your time with it, no immediate rush. And right, okay, so that should be enough. We can always put it back if needed, and then we're going to put it through the front of the extruder. You'll see it stops there. Just move the head back. I think what I'm going to do is just cut a bit of a better angle on that. That might actually be better, so it won't catch, and that's better. Okay, so we're going to push it all the way through till we see some filament, and it's just a manual way of doing it. There is an automatic way, but I just find manual is sometimes better. You can get it primed quite quick that way. And okay, we've got a bit of filament coming through, which is good, so we can push the Bowden tube right down. That's all sealed, this is all sealed, and we are ready to go. Okay, so we did the manual bed level, however we may need to do some adjustments. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the printer to print, and let's go for a boat. These are all the pre-settings. You've got stop and play, but we're going to press play, and we're going to just keep an eye on it. So you've got some settings so you can slow it down if needed. So once it gets going, we can make some adjustments. And we'll just keep an eye on the actual print. You'll see a little bit of filament on there, but that's no bother. We can pull that away when we can. And this is where, so the first time you'll print, you'll see whether there's any changes needed. So what it's doing right now is doing a prime, and you can pretty much get an idea of how that is from looking at that, which isn't too bad. Okay, so I can see that that's way too high. Not entirely sure why that's the case. Okay, so what I did was adjusted the Z offset, so you can do that in the settings. It seemed to be printing, even after the manual leveling and the auto leveling, it was printing really high. So I've adjusted that so it looks like it's okay. What I like about this printer is that you can change it from 0.01mm offset or 0.05. So I know on other printers you don't have that option, so I do like that. The actual printer itself is wobbling because it's on quite an unsteady desk, so I mean, if I was to move that up against the side, I think it would probably reduce that. But yeah, the actual setup, like I say, I've got a benchy on now. They call it boat, but it's actually a benchy. I'm happy with this. We're going to let it carry on printing and see how it looks in about, I think about 2 hours it's saying. It doesn't actually give you a time on how long it's going to take until it's finished, but it gives you sort of a percentage. So right now it's 3% in. So we'll come back in a couple of hours and see how it looks. Thank you for watching. As you can see, the benchy's finished, and it actually only took 51 minutes, which is really good. It's still quite warm on the plate, but actually it came off quite well. So as you can see, the flexi plate really helps. Now the quality of this is absolutely stunning for a first print with very little calibration. As you can see, let me try and get a better shot. So the actual quality of that is outstanding, really, in my eyes. Let's put it on there. Now, I have seen some real horror benchies from first use, so this is really impressive. For the speed as well, I'm guessing they've probably gone for about 120 milliseconds for the speed, because that was quite rapid for 51-minute benchy. I'm used to 2-hour ones. However, on the bamboo, we won't even talk about that. That's like 20 minutes. You can see the overhangs and stuff like that. It looks absolutely amazing. The transitioning of it looks good. The writing on the bottom as well looks absolutely perfect. So I'm really impressed with that so far. So I'm going to run a few prints now just to put it through its paces, maybe change the filament over just to try it from the slicer. So I'm using their Creality slicer to do this. I'm going to do it at 0.2 layer height. So I'm just going to do a couple of support-free busts just to highlight how good this printer is. In terms of the build and the quality so far, I'm really impressed with the quality of this Creality Ender 5 S1. I know there was some issues to begin with firmware, but it looks like they've absolutely cracked that. I'm loving the setup and the sprite extruder. That is definitely one of the big selling points, and the 220 by 220 by 280 on the build volume. I think this suits most people. So at the end of this video, you're going to see a number of prints that I've done, just some shorts. As you can see, I'm doing a bust now. It's a Doctor Strange bust. I'm using a dual colour filament from U-Colour. As you can see, the Creality Ender 5 S1 is laying down the first layer absolutely stunning. No issues with the offset on here, and say we'll come back in a few hours and we should have a stunning print there. Okay, so we've carried out another print. This is the Doctor Strange bust. It's support free, so quite an easy print. We use the U-Colour dual filament on that, and so the colour change and the transition is stunning. But printer wise, as you can see, let's just take that off the bed. And just take this off the bed now, just give it a little flex and it should just pop off. As you can see, the first layer was absolutely amazing on this. The quality is truly stunning. Now, I used the Creality slicer for this. It was actually the first time I've used that. I tend to use Cura, but it's actually pretty much the same. It's based on the same. As you can see, the colour transitioning on that from the greens to the gold. Just looks brilliant for this type of model. This was 0.2 layer height, and as you can see, no issues at all with the print. So it just goes to show sometimes the actual models on the disc are fine-tuned to the nearest millimeter. So to be able to slice something and print it so easily. I mean, even it's being support free, it's still quite a bit of a difficult model to print on your first time. Like I say, everything just peels off absolutely lovely when it's cold. No issues. Did flex it, to be fair, just before I picked up the model, so that's why it came up quite easy. But holding the camera at the same time, it just didn't go. This will just peel off, or you can just use the scraper. So no biggie on that respect. Now, in terms of the quality, absolutely stunning. As you can see, the bench he printed in 51 minutes and is flawless in its quality. Absolutely no issues, no stringing, no deviations to the print. Clearly see the markings on the bottom and the bust as well. So I'll be bringing out some more videos over the next few weeks. So quick shorts, just basically going over what I'm printing. And that's the Creality Ender 5 S1. Now, you can pick this up on Amazon, on the Creality website, for about £599, about £600. At the time of making this video, so a very good price in comparison to sort of rival brands. Now Creality have definitely hit out of the park for the sprite extruder. Being able to print up to 300 degrees is a massive selling point. The cube style Cartesian printer as well creates a stable print each time. The UI for it was really easy to use. The touch screen itself is very responsive. Like I say, didn't have an SD card in the box itself, but that's no big problem at all. I already had the files to hand, easy to download those and put on there. So like I say, when you put the bed back on, like so, let's move those out of the way, you do, as you can see, it wasn't quite straight. At the top you do have some locating pins like that. You just push the bed, drop it down, fits into the place every single time. Now you can swap that out. See no issues with these beds, really none at all. As you can see, the layer on that is absolutely stunning, and that was with very, very minimal change to the calibration. Did a little bit of Z offset, but like I say, drop the speed down to 40%, and that gives you a better opportunity to look at the first layer. The worst thing to do is run at 100% speed, because what that does is it lays down so quickly, it basically just leaves an absolute disaster of filament. I always slow the print on all of my printers down to about half or 40%, and that goes slow enough for you to see how it's layering, and you want to get the perfect layer height. And I have perfect prints every time using that process. Like I say, thank you to Creality for sending this over for review. All of my thoughts on this today are truly my own, and I'm absolutely blown away. Now, bearing in mind I do have the Bamboo X1 Carbon, and this is probably my second most favourite at the moment, and obviously I've only had it for 24 hours, so you never know, it could rival it. Obviously the AMS on the Bamboo just takes it to a whole new level, and the ease of use, but the Creality Ender 5S1 is definitely up there, and rivaling some companies that need to. Yeah, so check them out. I'm going to leave some comments and information in the description, so links to be able to buy this machine. Yeah, take care everyone. That's 3DP UK, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll bring more content over the next few months on the Creality Ender 5S1. Take care everyone. Phil from 3DP UK.